Good evening and welcome to The World According to Mike Graham. It's a fantastic night and the football season is upon us. So what better than to have a look at Mr BBC himself and Mr Football, Gary Lineker. Let's begin at the beginning, shall we? Gary Lineker's first job was working at his dad's fruit and veg stall in Leicester Market in the late 1970s.
Leicester's indoor market bustles on a January morning with the kind of atmosphere that's made it one of the most popular in the Midlands. Its speciality is fruit and vegetables, and that's where the Lineker family come into their own.
It's a bit special, Leicester Market. I think it's supposed to be the biggest outdoor market in Europe.
Is he much good at the store?
Well, I think he can be if he wants to be, but it's too early in the morning for him.
Too early in the morning for him. And he was on the stall with his brother Wayne, who now runs nightclubs, and his dad there, who was speaking about how he doesn't like getting up too early in the morning. He looks a lot different though, doesn't he? Very young, very fresh-faced, but similarly kind of inquisitive. He's not sure exactly what it is that they do there. Gary hit the big time though when he pooed himself on the pitch during 1994, threw himself full on into advertising. He signed a deal, one of the first ever commercial deals he did, £200,000 worth of sponsorship for Walker's Crisps.
Mom, I'll never be in the England squad wearing this kit.
Oh, don't you worry your little self, David. I use Walker's new football snacks.
That was before anybody knew what identifying as a woman was. And that was him, of course, as the mum, and David Seaman, the England and Arsenal goalkeeper. Gary joined the BBC after getting all that great experience in front of the camera in 1999 to host Match of the Day. Of course, he still does that now. He became their highest paid presenter on £1.35 million a year. And in 2016, he did what he said he would do if Leicester won the title, and he presented it in his pants.
Here we go again, new season, new titles, new managers, new signings, but apart from that, nothing much has really changed. 7 games on the way from the opening day of the Premier League.
And there he is, showing that he does in fact have a bit of a sense of humour, but I suppose if you look that good in your pants, why wouldn't you do it? Of course, last year he revealed the High Performance podcast that he was on, that he suffered from racial abuse as a youngster and as a young footballer, because he said his skin was a bit dark.
You know, this tiny geeky kid with like, you know, darkish skin and eyes. You know, it's pretty much racist abuse. Although I'm not, I'm as English as they come.
Really?
You know, yeah, all the time. Even in professional football, I had that a couple of times. I wouldn't ever name any names. Yeah. So I got that kind of nonsense, which was a bit weird.
Yeah, it certainly was a bit weird because, I mean, the one thing Gary Lineker isn't is black. He doesn't have particularly dark skin. And in fact, when he talks about playing for teams in professional football, some of those teams actually had other black players in. It came as a bit of a shock to them to know that Gary was the victim of racial abuse. But there you have it. Let's now talk to an expert and get to the bottom of what makes Gary Lineker tick. So now it's time to talk to an expert, and a man who's an expert in many things, but for the purposes of tonight is an expert in Gary Lineker. He is, of course, TalkTV's very own Mark Saggers. Mark, a very good evening to you.
Oh, it's a very good evening to you on this Friday. I'd like to say I'd have glass in hand, which I would for many others, but not for Gary, I'm afraid.
No, I'm afraid not. I mean, what a man, though. He's a man who knows nothing but success. He's never really failed at anything that he's done. And I'm certainly not here to bury Gary Lineker,
No.
but I'm not here to praise him either, because I think the one thing he doesn't have is humility about anything. He's now started a podcast with Michael Richards and Alan Shearer, the two cohorts of his Match of the Day panel. All together, they're paid £2 million by the BBC. But the BBC is so hopeless that they let them go off and record the podcast for his commercial podcast company. So he'll make a fortune from that as well.
I was his first ever script writer.
Were you?
Yeah, I was. He joined us at the end of '99 at BBC Sport and Outside Broadcasts. Most of us in those days when we joined were invited on a Friday afternoon to 3H, which was the room. Gary Lineker arrives, and I'm told that I'm no longer presenting this show because he is, but you've got to write his script for him. And I said, well, okay, I have to do whatever I have to do. I'm a young reporter just starting out here, so I'll do it. But I hope we're going to continue with the confidentiality that we always have done. Oh, yes, says the boss, of course we are. Well, we had a meeting after his first effort. And of course, we had meetings all the time. It was Chatham House rules. And everybody, this is the great thing about BBC Sport and Outside Broadcast, from Des Lynam to the lowest junior, you could say what you liked in this meeting. And we did. And we discussed one or two others who happened to be other clients of Gary Lineker's agent.
Oh, yeah.
Next thing I know, I'm taken off the programme for speaking out of turn about some of our great sportsmen.
So what, do you suspect...
Well, there was only one place that came from.
You suspect Mr Lineker told his agent, who then passed that back to the BBC?
He looks as if he should be a really great bloke.
Yeah, but he gets
away
with everything, doesn't he? Because he's got this image of being kind of Mr Nice Guy. You know, there are those who know him better than I do who say, well, I mean, he can be. I've met him a couple of times and, you know, I've had a couple of funny conversations with him, even though he's blocked me on Twitter and he knows me from being the concrete guy, you know. But he's all right because he doesn't have anything to worry about because he's almost copper-bottomed, as my father would say. But he had his football career. He went to Barcelona. He learned Spanish. I mean, he's an intelligent guy and he's had a charmed life, I suppose you'd say, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was coming towards the end of my first career at the BBC, there was quite a few of us who would joke late into the evenings when we were doing overnights and then the Today programme by basically saying there's only two people in the whole country that are untouchable. The Queen Mother and Gary Lineker.
And I wonder why that is, because he's also famous, of course, for that incident in 1990 that we saw in the clips there, where he had an unfortunate pooing episode on the pitch. I mean, that's horrendous, isn't it? I mean, that would finish off most people.
Yeah, it really sort of makes me laugh. He's one of the sniffiest persons you could ever meet over so many different people. But he stank the place out, Mike, at that stage.
He did,
he's
literally
been doing it quite a lot ever since. He doesn't actually do very much work.
No.
I'd have to say that. I mean, I overcompensate. Look, I am what I am, and I've been doing this for 40 years, and I'm older than all these guys, so they can't pull the wool over my eyes anymore.
Yes.
And, you know, when he was at Spurs, the great Gazza was the real man that would give you everything, give everything away. Gary Lineker didn't even want to share a room. He didn't want to be a roomie with anybody else. He wanted this, he wanted that. You know, he came late to the charity scene, quite rightly, when his son George contracted leukemia, and he's done some very great things about that. But he was from a Leicester market trader.
Yeah, he was, and of course he's gone from trading whatever he was trading at the market stall, whether it was fruit and veg in Leicester, to now being the highest paid employee of the BBC. Incredible, and they can't even suspend him without getting it wrong.
No, and I just wonder how many of those, when that suspension went on and the rest of the commentators went out on strike, he actually thanked for that. I'd like to know, actually, how many of those were actually thanked for having to put their jobs on the line because Lineker was bigger than the corporation.
Yeah, and he remains bigger than the corporation. And do you know what?
Yeah, but there's so many things here, Mike. Hang on, I know that it's your show, but I just want to get one or two other quick things in here.
You carry on.
You know, do you remember that programme, Cabbages and Kings?
Yes.
Well, he really is a cabbage from what happened in Leicester on the market, but he thinks he's a king on absolutely everything. He sits for £4 million a year and basically throws out 3 or 4 unfunny lines and asks the same 6 questions of his giggling, adoring other pundits, and that's it. Thank you very much. There's nothing more than that. There's the odd atrocious time when he was caught on live television doing, sports personality of the year, which of course they used to have to fix in the old days because the fishermen got it every year. But they had to sort of change. They had to stop those fans phoning through when it was just a phone call and give it to someone. All over the place.
Yeah, that's the thing. But he's learned and he gets better with age, I suppose you would say, in terms of his career. And in the end, when the BBC does fall down around itself, he'll still be the only one left standing. But listen, Mark, brilliant to talk to you. Thank you so much for that insight into Gary Lineker. You are indeed even more of an expert on him than I realised. Mark Saggers back, of course, on TalkTV on Sunday nights. That was my big deep dive into Gary Lineker. And now it's time for Trump's takedown.
You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
You know, I have this gorgeous head of hair. I like
When I take a shower, I want water to pour down on me. When you go into these new homes with showers, the water drips down slowly, slowly. You have suds, beautiful, nice, wonderful suds, a lot of money, Procter & Gamble, all that crap that they say is good. Probably cost them about 2 cents and they sell it for $10. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
Donald Trump, can't live with him, can't live without him. Coming up after the break, it's time for Prime Minister for a week. Welcome back to The World According to Mike Graham. And now it's time for Prime Minister for a week with James Whale and Reem Ibrahim. Right, so this is the chance for you both to try and impress me with your ideas as to why you should be Prime Minister. To be fair, you're not up against much of a bar because the current Prime Minister is in Santa Monica doing a spin class to Taylor Swift music and walking around in very expensive loafers, probably made by Gucci. So, James, what would be your first move if you were to be Prime Minister?
What I would do is, quite frankly, I would lock up every Just Oil protester because they are a pain in the backside. They don't achieve anything except to turn everybody off any idea of helping the planet. They are a nuisance. A lot of them are very old. A lot of them are very young and stupid. Right. And can I just say to you here right now, I think you are the scum of protesters. You need putting away. And I would not, no messing around, no lawyers, nothing. Right. You would be banged up for 10 years.
I think that's a great one. Very good start, James, I must say. Now, we've got a lot to get through here, so there's no clock on either of you, but
really?
I may be forced to tell you there's no clock.
No
clock.
I'm slightly deaf.
Certainly no clock on Reem. There's no sense in talking about that sort of thing. What's your first idea, Reem?
So, as the token young person on the show today, I've got to say I would abolish the state pension.
Right.
Now, I know
it's worthless.
This might upset lots of people. Well, you say that. We now spend, I think we saw the figures this year, it's actually the state pension is equal to the amount of spending on police, defence and education. All of that spending is the exact same amount
But the good news is they don't waste it, though, on the old people, because the old people who take the pension mostly need it.
Most of the time they do, but what I would say is actually when we look at the US, for example, where most people actually invest in private pensions, if we saw the amount of money that people accumulate in tax overall, actually if they put that in the private sector and in private pensions, they would have actually been able to accumulate way more wealth. So actually this would help pensioners themselves because they'd be incentivized to put their money in better places, more efficient places.
But what if they can't afford to put their money anywhere?
Well, the point is they're already paying tax, right? Instead of paying that tax, what they should do instead is they should be putting it into a private pension. It's good for them, and I'm not being funny, but the amount that we as young people are paying for these state pensions, we can't sustain a growing population, aging population, whilst young people aren't working as hard.
Do you know, my mother is still getting a pension. She's 99. And I've told her that, she's now bankrupting the country because she's taken more than £1 million quid.
Well, I'm quite annoyed.
She's taken more money out. She's been a pensioner longer than she was working.
I'm disgusted. I'm going to have a word with your dad. I am disgusted. I'm now 70, nearly 73.
Yeah.
And I've been claiming my state pension, which is about 800 and something pounds a month, since I was 65, because I flipping well paid in for it.
Of course you did.
I paid in for it since I was 16. I've been working.
And you'd have more if instead of you paying all of that tax your entire life,
but now
you would
I
have
can't.
more now if you were able to pay into a private sector.
I did pray up. I couldn't
might
afford,
have had, but
I
Nat
couldn't
West might have lost it all for
well,
him.
exactly. I couldn't afford to pay a private pension until some years back, and I paid for it. And then I got cancer for the first time when I was 49, 50. And I decided at 50 I could claim the private pension.
Yes.
Do you know how much it is?
How much?
60 quid a week.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Blimey.
That's not a lot, is it?
No, it's not. Anyway, listen, we must move on.
So just before you do, what happens then if you get rid of the pension and am I just suddenly not going to have it anymore?
Well, all the money you would have invested, of course, I don't know how much you've paid in tax over your entire life. I assume it's a lot. All of that money would be invested now.
Would I get it all back before I die?
Okay, well, I'm glad we sorted that one.
Hang on for a while.
I don't think either one of you deserve to be Prime Minister at this point. You don't want to shut up. Now, what's your second suggestion, James?
Easy, and I'll be very quick. Offering free parking for all. I'm fed up with having to pay for parking. I'm at hospital a lot at the moment. Parking is disgusting.
It is.
And, parking wardens are pretty horrible people.
Yeah.
And I would just get rid of the lot. First come, first serve, park your car.
I've got a solution to that for you. Do you know how you get free parking?
How?
Join the Taliban. Because the Taliban park anywhere they like in Britain and they don't get a parking ticket. Or if they get one, they claim diplomatic immunity.
How do you become a member of the Taliban?
Well, check out I would say, first stop at the Afghan centre down at the embassy.
This is official advice, is it, Mike?
No, because
Would I be able to do that as Prime
Taliban
Minister?
owes London £125,000 in unpaid parking tickets.
Really?
I'm not joking, because they don't pay.
125,000 isn't a much.
It's a lot of parking tickets.
Oh, it's a lot of money for the parking tickets.
Anyway, so that's my solution for you.
All right.
Your second one?
My next one, I would legalise all drugs.
Really?
Now, I know this sounds crazy.
Blimey.
And people probably think I'm mad, but the reason why I would do that is effectively we're seeing this war on drugs at the moment.
Yeah.
And I mean, why are we locking people up for doing a bit of drugs? I mean, I feel like if they want to do it for themselves,
they're not being locked up for doing a bit of drugs. They're being locked up for dealing massive amounts of drugs.
But why are we telling people what they can and can't do with their own bodies? I mean, we looked at the vaccine, for example. I believe that as individuals, you should be able to choose if you want to take the vaccine or not. I think it's the same case
you
for
can.
drugs.
You don't have to take the vaccine if you don't want to.
But the
you
government
don't have to take drugs if you don't want to.
That's true, but at the moment they're still illegal, right? A lot of these are illegal, and it means that you get them on the black market.
What do you reckon, James?
Drugs
legalised?
Reem, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Really?
I totally agree with you because prohibition doesn't work.
Yeah.
Ever. And I think you need to keep an eye particularly on heroin addicts and crack cocaine and all the rest of it. The worst drug you can have is alcohol, and I do enjoy a bit of that.
And it's perfectly legal. So clearly, when you prohibit something, it doesn't work. And look at Scotland, which has some of the highest drug deaths in the country. And then you look at actually where they've been able to allow people to take heroin, take a lot of these Class A drugs with nurses next to them, so that actually they don't overdose.
In Scotland, they have something called methadone that they put people on who are heroin addicts, and they stand in front of you at the pharmacy as you're waiting to pick up your collection of unmentionables. And you wait behind these junkies, and it's horrible. And that's their version of looking after people. Anyway, we must move on. Your next one, James?
Ban organisations from putting you on hold.
That I agree with.
Because I had a reason to ring the hospital the other day. As you know, I'm in and out of hospital quite a lot. I had to ring the hospital and waited for 40 minutes on the phone.
That is ridiculous.
Then got through to the answer phone that said, "So sorry, nobody here to answer your phone at the moment. Please leave a message."
You know the worst?
I do not blame the doctors and the nurses. I blame the management of the NHS.
The NHS is hopelessly managed.
I would abolish the NHS.
No, but here's the thing, right? Worse than that is when you've been on there for about half an hour and suddenly you just get cut off.
Well,
you just go to the back of the queue and you go, "No! I've just been cut off."
Sad. I mean, the NHS is awful.
Sorry, a lot of these people are working from home.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem. They
Maybe
should
you ban
get back to work.
working from home. Get them back into the office. Why are people so lazy these days?
Well, because they've been offered the chance to be lazy. It's a bit like when you offer people free stuff, they take
They'll
it.
take
If
it,
you offer them a chance not to go to work, they won't go to work.
But
They're
if
not
you,
like us.
If you
have
are
no work
working,
ethic.
I mean, I had been doing a bit of work from home, so people during the pandemic.
Yeah, but
and
you have a good reason to do that, though, because it's hard for you to move sometimes.
But the thing is, if you are working from home, you are not paying to commute to work. And sometimes that's a huge amount of money if you're driving, if you're going on the train, if trains ever run. So, yeah,
good luck with that. I mean, that's the other reason people don't go to the office, is they can't get there. Right, so, Reem, your next one.
My next one. Now, we always end up going to the shops and we see these sales and we always see that it's £4.99.
Yeah.
£5.99. And they always do that to try and incentivise you to buy those products. But then you're always left with the change of the 1 penny.
Because they think you're in your head, you're going, "Oh, it's only £5."
It's only £5, but
they think
really,
we're stupid.
I know, they do think we're stupid. So I would say...
Some of us are.
Bring back... You always end up losing that 1 penny as well, right? When they give you back that 1 penny change, you always end up losing it. So what I would do is I would...
Well, you actually pay for things in cash now, do you?
Well, now if you are paying in cash...
Fuel is something 99, isn't
I think we should preserve cash and not always pay with banknotes. But what I will say is if we introduce 99p coins. Now, if we were to privatise the monetary system and allow banks to issue their own coins, we would get 99p coins. That way you wouldn't have to throw away that bronze one.
That's quite an interesting thing.
I think I agree with that more or less. But I don't agree with cash anymore because cash is full of germs, okay? And I've got a man bag.
But then the government are going to be tracking all of your transactions.
Well, they track you anyway, honey. There are so many cameras around and everything else. I just want a little thing here in my wrist. That's all I want.
You would take a microchip.
You're going to
Yes, I want a microchip.
get the freedom agents after you again, aren't you?
Oh my
Yeah, but
God.
it does.
You
They
know.
can get stuff.
Right.
I mean, the fact is, it's a lot easier, and people can.
I must admit,
spy
you know,
on you
just doing
everywhere.
that with a contactless card, it's a lot easier, isn't it?
And the problem with a contactless card is I can't remember my number.
Well, you don't need to.
So you would get a
it's
microchip
over
in your
100
wrist.
quid.
Well, you shouldn't be spending over 100 quid. What are you buying, for heaven's sake?
Well, I don't know.
What are you buying?
I took you out for a couple of drinks the other day. It gave you 150 quid. What are you
Crikey.
talking about?
I know. Well, listen, you should have asked me for help in that case. But anyway, what's your next one then? Your last one, actually. There's a lot of abolishing going on here.
Yeah.
I'm
I would,
libertarian.
And banning people.
I would allow restaurants, because this is we've got this whole thing now about being fat and inclusive and everything else.
Yeah.
But quite frankly, I was in a restaurant the other day and there was the ugliest, fattest bloke with sweaty armpits sitting just over there, and it just put me off my food. And I think...
So what is it, sweaty armpits? Is that the thing?
No, just disgusting rolls of fat on your... I don't pretend you and I are not exactly skinny.
Not exactly.
But there are people who are gross.
You're both beacons of beauty and youth.
Well, listen,
we are.
I say it's cost me an awful lot of money to look like this, you know. And I don't mean surgery. I mean the stuff I've eaten and drunk over the years. It's cost me an absolute fortune. But listen,
the whole point is you cannot discriminate against somebody because of the way they look.
But you can ban people from restaurants if you want, can't you? You just say, I don't want you coming in here.
You can, but it really causes a lot of aggravation. So I put it into law as Prime Minister.
Okay, all right. Well, listen, we've come to the end of a very lively debate, I have to say. And I'm slightly disturbed at all the things you, Reen, want to abolish. You know, you want to abolish state pensions, you want to abolish corporation tax, you want to, what else do you want to abolish? You want to legalise all drugs, so abolish the law.
I love freedom.
But she's very young and she'll realise when she gets to your age.
Yeah. See, I think James is a much more user-friendly sort of policy. He wants to allow restaurants to do things. He wants to, you know, offer free parking for all. He wants to, he does want to lock up just off. But, you know,
don't you?
I do.
Yes,
absolutely
well,
right.
quite right.
I'd shoot them. I'm only joking, of course, for those of you who are in compliance. The bottom line is, I think James Whale would make a fantastic Prime Minister. So I'm going to give you the win. But I mean, you can put
Could
Reem
I have
in the cabinet
Reem as my assistant?
Yes.
Oh, can I be your chancellor?
Do you want to be my chancellor?
I would love to be your chancellor.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yay.
First thing she's going to do is introduce a 99p coin.
Yay!
Right?
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well, that was great. So thank you very much indeed, both of you. Reem Ibrahim from the IEA, James Whale from just down the road. We'll be back with more from The World According to Mike Graham after this.
The president asked me to be in charge of managing that piece, then President Trump. Excuse me, Freudian slip. That was the last president. He caused, anyway, that was President Obama when I was vice president.
So that was Biden's balls up for the week. We'll be back next week with another great edition of The World According to Mike Graham.